RenderForest.com.
Hi all, my name is Trisha Peach, host of the Peach Buzz. I've been a children's pastor for about 17 years full-time. I work right now traveling, doing camps and conferences, and I really enjoy what I get to do. I'm the author of Your Children's Ministry from Scratch and Your Children's Ministry Beyond Basics. But this has nothing to do with pretty much any of that. This is something that happened to me that I I wrote about it a while back, and then I talked about it at a women's conference recently, and I thought, I never have talked about this a whole lot. So if you're one of my close friends, you already know what happened. If I'm just meeting you, hi. So this was a night that I should have died, and it was in March of 2011. So I was thinking this year, 2021, looking back, that I should have been buried and under the ground for 10 years now. I should be nothing but bones, but I am still here, still breathing, and it is a miracle. So I was going to explain what happened and how it changed my life, because sometimes having a near-death experience can really change you, and I hope that was the case for me. So I was at that point a full-time children's pastor, and I very driven, a workaholic. Nobody was forcing me to do it. It was just me being me. I'm definitely workaholic, and I want things at this high bar of excellence, so I push and push, and that's what I was doing. And I did not listen to my body. I just kind of grounded into the ground. I wasn't sleeping well. I was sick all the time. And by sick, I mean I had pneumonia almost constantly and bronchitis constantly. It just never stopped. It never let up. And I would just keep pushing. I'd be angry at my body going, how can you still be sick? Get over it. Let's do this. You know, it's kind of a burnout for God type of thing. Just keep working until you drop dead in the pulpit. That's the dream, right? And I was having really bad stomach pain, but I figured it was from nerves. And, you know, all my meals were eaten while running down the hall. I think I was pushing 70, 80 hours a week, plus 2 very small kids. I had my husband. We lived far away from family, so a lot of travel back and forth. And things were not going badly in the ministry. Things were going very well. We had gone from 300 to 600 kids in 9 months, so things were very, very busy. And again, I was just eating it up, trying to stay ahead of that. Well, one night I went to bed. I was having trouble sleeping, which I often did, that kind of high stress and anxiety. I was having trouble sleeping, and my stomach started hurting again, and I thought, well, great, you know, probably I should have eaten more today and shouldn't have stuffed all that down my throat so fast. And unfortunately, it got worse. For those of you that have had a baby, it started in like labor pains, where it would clamp down and then let up, and then clamp down and then let up, and it got worse and worse, and then suddenly it just clamped down and did not let up. And I realized I couldn't hardly move, and I started to scream, and I was vomiting, and it was in the dark, and so I didn't realize I was vomiting up just blood everywhere. I didn't realize that, and I got out a couple of screams, and my husband called 911, but I could not get any air in after that 2 screams. So I couldn't get any air in, and I thought, I'm going to suffocate. And my body was flopping around like a fish. Don't know if this is a seizure or what. So the ambulance crew got there, and wouldn't you know it, we had a power outage. We had those all the time in Dayton. Anybody from Dayton, you would know we had a lot of power outages. So this just happened to be a power outage. They were using flashlights, and they took me out on a stretcher, And I had my husband stay with the kids because we had very small children. And the last thing I said before they closed the ambulance doors was, call my mother, call my mom. So he called my mother right away, and she was already awake. This was at like 2 a.m. She said that God woke her up to pray for me. She knew something was wrong, so she was already sitting up praying when she picked up the phone when my husband called. On the way to the hospital, I can't describe it. It was the worst pain you can possibly imagine. It was far worse than labor pains. I can't describe it very well. Maybe like a blowtorch going around on your insides. I got to the point where I thought, this is okay to go be with Jesus. I don't want to do this anymore. It would be okay to just peace out at this point. But I did feel God's presence there with me, and they weren't going to give me any pain medications until I'd been seen by a doctor. So I got to a lovely Dayton hospital, which I won't say the name of. I was in there forever before a nurse went in, and then they gave me 5 rounds of morphine. It didn't touch it. I'm telling I didn't think it did a thing. The pain was excruciating. And then in the morning, a doctor poked his head in the door and didn't come near me. And he said, a lot of people have stomach flu. I'm sure it's stomach flu. Go home. So what do you do when the doctor says you're fine and you're not fine? That next morning, a friend had to pick me up because Scott was with the kids, and I couldn't stand up. I was stuck at a 90-degree angle, just kind of hunched over. I couldn't stand all the way up. And my friend took my whole family into her apartment because we still had no power at our house. So I'm laying there in her back guest bedroom when the fever kicked in. So I'm feverish. I still knew it wasn't stomach flu. And I tried drinking some water. I tried, drinking some nutrients. It just burned like fire. It was like I swallowing gasoline. It was bad. It was really bad. After a few days, I still couldn't fully straighten up. But me being me, I went in there to do baptisms at the church for kids ministry. And I remember a parent complaining to my boss saying, she looks like she's going to die. The parent said, oh, she looks terrible in every one of those pictures. And I'm sure I did. And at work, they were saying, okay, well, you're better now. The doctor says you have the flu. You're better now. And I was saying, this is horrible, but what am I going to do? The doctor said I'm fine. But I did schedule an appointment with my regular doctor, who's amazing, just fantastic. But every time I tried to eat, it hurt so bad. It just burned and burned. It was excruciating. So what I had to do was just white rice. I was eating white rice, more white rice. That was all I could stand, was white rice. So my doctor couldn't get me in for like another 2 or 3 weeks. So I went in and talked to my regular doctor, and he said, well, I think it's your gallbladder. I'm pretty sure it's your gallbladder. I don't think it's stomach flu because it wouldn't last 3-4 weeks. He did a test and he said, well, it has to be wrong because we're getting a 0 function for your gallbladder. That's not possible. So it's got to be your gallbladder. We'll get that taken out. Well, I was incredibly nervous. I'd never had a surgery before in my life. I met the surgeon who let me know he was an atheist, and he said, you don't need to be nervous. This is what I do every day. I've done this for 22 years. And I said, not on me, you didn't. And he said, it's insulting that you're nervous. I do this all the time. I'm like, well, I don't. But the closest they could get me in was another 2-3 weeks. So this was 6-7 weeks after that terrible night, and I still could only eat white rice. Well, I remember going under, and one of the last things the surgeon said to me was, calm down, I don't get surprised. And that was the last thing that I remembered going when they put me under for surgery. When I woke up, my husband is rocking next to me like this in the chair, and he's doing this. I can't raise these kids alone. I can't raise these kids alone. I can't raise these kids alone. That's a bad sign. At that point, I knew, okay, something went wrong. Something is not right. But I wasn't panicked because I was still on a whole lot of medications from the surgery. And apparently the doctor came in and talked to me several times, and I did not remember much of it. I learned more later from my husband because I was out of it. Apparently when they got in there, I had a very rare complete duodenal separation. So I'd had a bleeding ulcer in my small intestine that had burst. And apparently I'd bled out into my abdomen, and they said there's no way someone could have survived with that kind of blood loss. Because I bled out. A major blood vessel had torn in there when it burst, and I bled out everywhere into my abdomen. So they said I should have been dead within no more than 2.5 minutes. But it gets better or worse. I don't know how you look at that, but the surgeon said that he thought he found all the pieces of my gallbladder because the rupture was right next to my gallbladder, and it just shattered it all over. So the pieces were everywhere. So he said he thought he found all the pieces. He tried to put it back together. The pieces that he got out, they were all over the outside of my organs. And he said, you should have had septic shock. You should have died of septic shock within, a week or two at least. And then he said, my husband was scared because he said he found flecks of white all over the outside of all my organs. So he thought it was cancer everywhere. Well, that's what had panicked my husband, why he was rocking, saying, I can't raise these kids alone. But pathology, when it came back, it was white rice. Everything I'd eaten for the last 6-7 months was on the outside. It was just out there, white rice, whatever else I'd eaten. And he said there should have been gangrene. The surgeon was just baffled, flabbergasted. And he said, I still don't believe in God, but I have to believe then that you are an evolutionary leap. I was like, okay, whatever. But he said he'd never seen anything like that outside of a textbook, and it's usually someone very, very elderly, and that made me feel great. He said, you should have been dead from the blood loss, you should have been dead from septic shock, you should have been dead from gangrene, and I do not have an explanation for how you're still breathing. He was not able to fix the hole because my body had already encapsulated it and covered it over. So he said my outside of my liver was covered in old blood. So he tried cleaning that up as best he could. And it wasn't registering with me, I think because of all the medications or whatever. So I came back for the follow-up I think it was 2 weeks later. And at the follow-up, he said, okay, what did the gastroenterologist say about all the other ulcers? And it was like I got hit in the face. I said, what do you mean all the other ulcers? And he said, we talked about this. I didn't remember it because I was out of it. And my husband he wasn't listening at that point. All he was thinking was, oh my gosh, it's cancer. He said they're everywhere. The bleeding ulcers are everywhere. They're all over your small intestine. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe it. And he said, you need to go to the gastroenterologist. And I said, what do I change about my eating so that this never happens again? What do I do differently? And he paused, and then he said, I don't know, because no one's ever survived before. So I can't tell you what to do differently. And they said that these are caused by a certain type of H. pylori organism infection, and I tested negative for that. I didn't have that infection, so that kind of was weird. But then it was trips to the gastroenterologist. It was just recovering. So what was the aftermath? What was the aftermath of all of this? Well, it took me some time to process. I tried to find a support group for people who had survived this, and I couldn't, because I found 2 people in the world. And when I did some research online, the rupture that I had, even if you're in the hospital when it happens, is 99.2% fatal. So how did it change my life? I think an experience like that really does change you, because it made me think I should not be breathing right now. I should not be functioning. And I think I foolishly thought, oh, God spared my life, to keep doing ministry. That may have been part of it, but I think the biggest reasons were my husband and my children. They still needed me here. My kids were very small at the time, so I have been here to see them grow up in middle school, and now they're both in high school. So part of it was I went, oh my gosh, I can't drive my body like this anymore. I am so sorry to my body for abusing it all those years being a workaholic. I can't do this to myself anymore. I began to eat a whole lot healthier. I began to exercise more. So I'm going to stop and enjoy every second, every moment that I can. And I'm not going to let stress and fear ruin my life. I have a happier life right now. I have a more relaxed life. I have a more joyful life. So I'm actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, grateful that happened, because I know God allowed it and then spared my life to say, Trish, you need to stop this workaholism and driving your body into the ground. You have one body. You're supposed to be a steward of it. By the way, my last scan was 1.5 years ago. I have to have them periodically now. I have to take periodic medications, and they check every couple of years, do a full endoscopy. And I have not had one ulcer since. Not one. And I know God has spared my life, and I need to listen. I need to listen more to God. I need to listen to my body. It's not wrong to listen to your body when it's screaming for help. I need to just tell you all today that I love you, and life is short. Go out and enjoy a sunset. Go out and enjoy the sunrise. Enjoy your kids even when they're driving you up a wall. Love your family. And I know it sounds so corny, but I know I almost died. I should have died. I shouldn't be here right now, and I'm so happy that I am. For what time I have left, I really, really want to live, and I want to live joyfully. So I love you guys. This is the story. So now I've said it, and if it's inspired you, please let me know. Please comment down below, and just keep living. Keep living every day that God gives you breath. He's not done with you yet. So I love you. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, and God bless.